music is too loud. There we go. So, how's everybody doing? Another great day for science, as Dexter would say. So we're gonna jump right back in. I think the last thing we learned about was inheritance, which is now all messed up, kinda, because we started separating everything. Let me just see if I can make my chroma key not go crazy. This seems fine, but it's not gonna be for long because it's gonna be dark during the stream. It's gonna get dark during the stream. Okay, let me see. I got Godot going. Yes, we do. Nice, nice. Okay. So let's stop the music. And I think I want to watch the last like 3 minutes of the inheritance thing, because I don't actually know where we stopped.
The other levels. The major part missing right now is that we have to create an inside level, and this is what this part will be about. And fortunately, there isn't very much that we need to get started. Basically, we're going to reuse the tile map and the earlier bits we have built to build this level. There's only one thing that I absolutely have to cover, and that is how to use a tile set across multiple tile maps. So we don't have to redraw all of the shapes for the collision and the lights. But that is very easily done. Here we are back in Godot, and first of all, I want to close the item container, the toilet, and the crate. So I have only the levels open. And what I want to do right now is inside of the level, I want to add in the ground a tile map. So with Control or Command A, I want to add a tile map. The issue right now is that for this tile map, we could create a tile set, new tile set, and then redo all the stuff we have done for the house.
No, please
As a matter
don't.
of fact, let me reopen the house, or the house scene to be a bit more specific. There we have built all of the stuff with a tile map. And the tile map got quite extensive. So if I look at tile set, and all of this, under paint, we have painted a whole bunch of physics layers. There you can see them a bit better. And on top of that, we have also drawn a whole bunch of occlusion shapes.
Yeah.
All of this we right now only have available inside of the house scene. But we want to use all of that inside of the inside level. And for that, you want to go to Tile Set, and then click on Save the Tile Set. Now Godot is giving you a no file dialog, and there we have house.trace. This is the tile set we are currently working with. And this I want to save not inside of houses, but instead I want to save it inside of levels. Save it in there. And now if you look under scenes, there we have levels. And in there we now have house.trace. Doesn't look like very much, but what we can use it for is inside of the inside level, we can drag this house trace into the tile set. And now we have everything available that we need. Especially if I go to tile set, all of the occlusion and physics layers are still available. So we don't have to redraw everything. Also, the size of each tile is also correct. And that is pretty much all we needed. Which means now we can start with the exercise. And that is going to be, I want you guys to build the inside level. Make sure to use a tile map extensively and add some lights, maybe some particles, and just make the entire thing look nice. Pause the video now and try to create all of that.
Okay, this is actually something that I'm very much looking forward to doing in my own game. The only problem is I have a bit of a hard time setting up the tile sets properly, because I'm already repeating myself 100 times, but I want to make a game that looks like it's taking place on a CAD blueprint, so I'm drawing all my tile sets inside of a... Wait, let's put some chill music. So I'm drawing all my tile sets in a CAD program, and that's very different because it's vector graphics, or CAD graphics that don't use pixels, they use like metric system, and then all that gets really tricky to properly print as a PNG, with DPI and all that thing. So I'm trying to figure that out. I did. So there's this like DPI calculator type thing. I was trying to do it with that, where you can say, okay, if DPI is 100 and you have, I don't know, 256 pixel squares, then that's 65.02 millimeters. So you see how it gets messed up, right? If you want to use metric, it's kind of messy. But yeah, I'm gonna as soon as I figure that out, I'm gonna start doing my own thing. The problem is I've managed to get it so the tile map is 1 pixel off, which is driving me insane, because not everything is, not everything fits the way it should. Is that okay? That's okay. And those are the endings. Nah. Aha! Yeah, we need to start working in layers again. Fuck. Let's just rename this layer as walls. Then make a new one. It's gonna be ground. And the ground is gonna have to be below the walls. There we go. Let's go back to walls. This seems fine. Ich würde... Maybe... How did we do it in the house? Aha, there's 3 separate layers. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's do one more. Nope. Interior walls, I guess, and that goes above the ground, but below, or no, that was okay. Yeah. So interior walls. We don't have any doors just yet, but this would work, I guess. I don't know what kind of a fucked up house this is, but you know. Kannst du mich hören? Ich würde das später um 8 ungefähr oder 9, wenn Sonne total weg ist, weißt du? Ja, aber es ist noch warm draußen, deswegen. So you can finally hear me speaking German, which I'll never get used to it. Ah, does this? Yeah, this doesn't look nice now. I have to do it like this, I guess. and then leave. We're gonna need a bigger space, I think. This is just for practice anyway, I don't think we're gonna be building anything crazy here. The only thing that's really hard to remember is to switch the layers. Something like this. And aha, we still need the ground. Why does it have Is this where the like the vent comes in? That might be cool to put in. Like here in the middle. Yeah, let's see if this works. But yeah, it's amazing when you start clicking and just working with this, how fast you can have a level going. That's really encouraging. Oh, we don't have... Huh. We don't have a corner... Ah, we do. Yeah, we do. Wait. Wait. Yeah, okay. That looks fine. Then we can paint... We can do a triangle, right? Or rectangle, like this. Nice. Aha, I'm gonna add the hole again. And we can paint this in a line. This side we got. We have this. 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 Aha, it's for this as well. Okay. Yeah, this was maybe not meant for for a vent. Yeah. That was just... But it gave me an idea to add a vent there. And we can maybe add this on the entrance. That should be fine. Where's the player? Aha, it's in front. Yeah, let's test this. Aha, current scene, please. Don't do this to me. There we go. Yeah, nice. We have collisions. We can walk around. We have a couple of rooms. And we have a hole here. I'm gonna put the vent animation here. Let's see, vent... Steam vent? No, what was the anim... How did we call that? Did we actually save that as anything? Fan, maybe? Fan? Light fan animation, there we go. Oh! Aha, now I opened it. That's not what I wanted. Nope. Scene, light, and animation. There we go. And we can put it. That kind of doesn't make sense, but it kind of looks cool. It's gonna work now? It's not. Okay. Autoplay. How about now? Ah, wrong button. Remember to start the scene again. Every time. Now it's working. Nice. Okay. Let's put a bunch of lights inside. Light. Wall light. I like the simple light more. The wall light, it's just overkill. It's really brutal. It's minus 90, right? Nope, it's 90. Control D. There we go. Control D. Can I now change all of their Y positions, or no, all of their Y15? Does that change it for everybody? Oh, yes, it does. Nice. Okay. So they're all lined up properly. At least they should be. Looks like it. Wait. Control D. Minus 90. Oh, if you hold shift like in many other programs, it locks it. It locks it to just orthogonal movement, which is great. Big fan. $180. There we go. And then another one. Now what I wanted to know is there a way to make a group here? Just like a folder. Filter by group. So there is a way. Add. Group. Ah, there's a canvas group. Okay, that's not it. Batch name. So I guess we would need to group it under a node, just like a 2D node or something, but not a big fan of that. Let's leave it for now. Maybe he's gonna mention it in the tutorial. Let's copy this one over here. What? There we go. We might add some objects, like maybe a crate or, you know, a toilet. Let's see what we have. We have... Oh, we have a bed? Yeah, sure. Let's put... No, I don't want to open it. Bed. You can say this is like the... This is the bedroom. Then we can add... Let's see, what else do we have? We have a box. Let's say this is like a warehouse. Or... Oh, nice. Okay. There we go.
Did you say dance?
It's like a storage area. Right. There we go. What else do we have? Box, gate, house, item container, light, simple light, toilet, toiler. Let's put at least... Oh yeah, we can put the huge light here on in the warehouse. So simple light 4, we can delete 3. There we go. Now we have all the objects that we used in our game so far, I think. Shadows work. Light works. Aha, collisions work, but now everything is... We need to move the player on top of everything. Because the gun gets clipped underneath the objects, which does not look great. Okay. So if we move the player here, aha, we cannot move that, but we can move everything else below the player. There we go. Okay, I think that should work. I think that's good enough for now. Let's see.
Back in Godot. Before we start, there's one thing I forgot to mention. If you look at the layers, you can see that we don't have the layers from the earlier tile set. Inside of houses, we had, if I scroll down a bit, we had layers for the floor, the outer and the inner walls. These layers are not being carried over, so we have to recreate them.
That is a shame.
That being said, physics layers, or all the layers associated with the tile set, like physics layers and occlusion layers, those do carry over. So if I look at this house, there we have physics layers and we have the occlusion layers as well. Although we didn't change them, but they would be changed if we had changed them. Which means inside of the inside level, I want to create a couple of layers. And I'm going to use the same I have used for the house. Meaning we have a floor, then we have outer walls, and finally we have inner walls. I think I just called them floor, outer, and inner, but let me extend the inspector a bit and let's look at all of this. I called them properly. So outer walls and inner walls. So this should be called outer walls and inner walls. This is all we need. Now we have different layers. And if I now look at the tile map, we have floor, outer walls, and inner walls. Perfect. With that, we can start sketching out a basic shape for the level. And usually the best way to approach this is to use the rectangular shape. I already have that one selected, which means if I now select the basic floor tile, I can sketch out a couple of rough shapes. Let's do something like this. Then we can add a shape down here. And obviously, for all of this, you want to spend some time for an actual level. But in my case, I am not terribly concerned with this. I do, however, want to have some entrance area, and that's looking pretty good. And now I have a rough shape for the level. Once I have that, I can zoom in and then create the outer walls. For the outer walls, I want to use the pencil and then do something like this. Also making sure that I finish the ending bits, like so. Basically what we have to do is draw a shape around all of this, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to speed up the video at this point because this is pretty boring to look at. All right, there we go. This covers the outer wall, and you can still see we have these gaps in the middle. And for that, we have to work on the floor layer. We have these bits, we have those corner bits, and we have some round shapes for this area. And well, now we have to go through all of this again and add these other shapes. All right, that is quite a bit, and this is quite a large level. Finally, before I start the scene, I want to place the player at the starting point roughly here, next to the main entrance. And that wasn't the player, that was the camera, so I want to undo all of this. The issue we have for this one is that if I try to move the player, I always move the camera, so the node furthest down in the tree. But this is not what I want. I want to only target the parent, not the child node. And for that, Godot has another nice functionality. It's this symbol right next to the lock. If you select the player and activate it, now whenever we click on the player, we only select the parent node. We cannot select the children.
I noticed if you switch from this select icon to this move icon, it will always move the node that you have selected. So that's actually not that big of a problem. That's how in most CAD programs that works as well. You have a selection tool which you can fuck up and select some things you don't want, but if you use the move, then you select the object here, and if you move it. I think that's why I didn't have problem with it before.
Anymore, which in this case would be the camera 2D. So with that, I want to move the player roughly to the entrance area, and that is looking quite good. Now, before we continue and test all of this, there's one more thing that I want to do. And that is inside of the ground, I want to add a sprite 2D. This sprite 2D has to be behind the tile map. It's gonna get a graphic, so I go to graphics, and there we have ground, and I want to use dirt.png. So drag this into the texture, and right now you can't see this one at all because it's way too small. For that, I want to enable region, then click on edit region, and you can see what kind of texture we have. It's some basic ground texture. And on that, I want to select a giant area, so we are covering a larger bit. If I close this now, it's still not large enough, so let me manually update the width and the height. Right now it's 7,000, let's go with 10,000. Probably still too small, let's say 15,000. Definitely better. And for the height, we currently have about 4,000. Let's go with 10,000 and move the thing in the right spot. Something like this. That's feeling a bit better. Now, the issue we have right now is that the repetition of these pixels is wrong, so we are stretching out the outer bits. For that, I want to go to texture, and repeat should be enabled. Now this is looking significantly better. And with that, let's test this particular scene. And I can move around. I still get collisions, and I am quite happy with this. At the moment, we are still able to walk out of the building and then break the game, meaning if I walk too long in one direction, you will be seeing the background. There we go. But in the actual level, once the game is done, I'm going to add another area here that is going to transition us to the outside level. So that way the player will never notice. But so far, this is looking pretty good. Although we don't have any inside bits, and for that, I want to work in the tile map again, and now we have inner walls. And for the inner walls, we have to use the bits at the bottom, and I am probably going to speed up all of this once again, because looking at this part is going to be incredibly boring. But basically all you want to do is to add a few parts, and then make the game look good.
Add a couple of parts and make the game look good. Hey Rodrigo! Welcome to the stream.
Alright, with that, we have a couple of interior walls. Obviously, as always, this isn't too fancy, and for your game, if you want to have a good looking one,
How you doing,
want to
man?
spend a lot more time on all of that.
You also
But
started,
for my purposes, this is a decent
Godot?
tile map. Which means next
Or
up,
are you a
we
pro
can add
already?
some lights. Now the lights I want to have in a separate node, so that we have the ground, projectiles, the player, and then I want to have lights. Since we want to have this inside of the inside level and the outside level, I'm going to create a new node inside of the parent level. All I want in there is a node 2D that I will call lights. If I now save the scene, inside of the inside level, we have lights. The one light that we have already used, if I open, I think I called it light fan animation. That one, I can place this in a couple of spots. Let's say one here, then I can duplicate it, place another one, I don't know, let's say somewhere here, and then the final one somewhere over there. And let's test all of that. It's looking pretty good. So I am reasonably happy with that. There are a few more lights that we can work with. If I close ground and look at lights, there we have overlays, and then there we have whole, infrastructure, and lattice. Basically, what those are, if I direct them in there, we have simply a kind of light texture that we could use as an overlay. The way you would want to use it, I want to place all of this into the lights. You want to go to visibility, and under modulate, you want to lower the transparency quite a bit, something like this. And once you have that, you can use all of that to drag image to something like this. I guess I could move it over here, so we're covering the entire area. And a bit more, something like that. And now, if I run the game, we have an overlay that adds a bit more texture. It doesn't look ideal, but I think you get the idea. Let's say for this one, I want to lower the opacity quite a bit more, so it's barely visible. Something like this. And yeah, that gives it a bit more of an atmosphere. And essentially what you want to do is, once again, you want to scatter around a couple of these throughout the inside level, make the entire game look good. By the same logic, we could add a few more lights. For example, if I add another sprite 2D, we could add a hole, add it to the texture, and there we have a hole. And if you hold Alt and Shift, you can scale it up proportionally. And this, once again, I want to modulate and lower the modulation.
I would be interested to see how this looks if you put it as a light texture inside. Then you can, like in a light.
And lower the transparency.
Actually, let's do that. We can do that really, really easily. So, let's go back to, for instance, the house. And yeah, let's use this light as an example. Move it around. And that was, where was that? Decals? Oh. Lights? Overlays. Okay, and now if we use wall light, I have to actually go into the scene of the light. I have to find the point light, and instead of this texture, what if we used the lattice, for instance? Aha, no. This doesn't look very good. Okay. Okay, I was wrong. I thought it would deform the texture like it does the circle. But how's... is this a bug now? Can you please go away? It still gets occluded, and yeah, but no, that does not work. Okay, so you cannot make textures with that, or like, you know, have a feeling of like Venetian blinds or things like that. You would have to do it somehow else. Or you do it with this, but it needs to be skewed. Let me see. Texture, scale, height, offset. Yeah, it would already need to be like perspective skewed for 2D. That does not work in 2D, I guess. Okay. Let's put this back before I break anything else. Let's save that. Save the house. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. I was just curious.
And then give it a slightly different color to add a bit of atmosphere. Something like this looks good. And finally, we have the lattice. So let me duplicate the sprite 2D and paste in the lattice. And this one is a bit too large. So let's scale it down. And I want to move it, I don't know, let's say somewhere here. And also
it's like a
change
vent.
the modulation so it's a bit less visible. It's probably a bit too little. There we go. So with that, we can add a few more lights, and those I want to duplicate just to place them in different spots. I am probably going to speed up all of this quite a bit because, well, it's going to be boring to watch. This is fairly manual labor.
This is basically like baking in lights in
all right. I think with
editing.
that, we have a decent start, especially for a tutorial. The last thing I want to do is to duplicate this industrial line, then rotate it. And this you can do, by the way, on top, you have these symbols. There you have move mode, you have rotate mode, and you have scale mode. If you click on rotate, you're just rotating whatever object you're selecting. I want to rotate it to roughly 90 degrees. Now go back to the normal mode and then scale all of this up. So we are covering the entire range. And then scale it a bit further. And there we go. This is adding a bit more. And the more of the stuff you add, the better your level is going to look. Let's try and test all of this. That is still looking pretty good. And yeah,
but
I'm
that
reasonably
is
happy
true.
with all of
It
that.
breaks the
Next up,
straight lines.
we have
of
to
the
add
level.
a few more lights. And those I want to add in the ground because the player should be on top of them. Basically, what I want to add is the wall light and the simple light. Let's start with the wall light. And I could see another problem that if I try to select this light, I am selecting this other light. And for that, I want to lock the lights for now, so they're not getting in the way. As a matter of fact, let's lock all of this. That way, I should be able to simply drag
Hey,
light
Prophet, welcome.
and move it to
Hi, too.
wherever I'm going to need it. Like this.
How's it going,
Then
man?
I can do it again. Place it with a transform of 90 degrees. Actually, negative 90 degrees. Somewhere here. Do the same thing down there. And I think at this point you get the idea. And this should be kind of boring. But if you want to create a level, you simply have to
super
put in
interesting to
some menu.
do code, but
So let me
very
create a few
boring
more
to look
lights.
at. You're right.
Don't want to make this too boring. Say one more here, one more there. Then a final one up here. And let's go with one here. This will be the first kind of light. The other kind of light I want to add is going to be a simple light, I think I called it. There we go. It's a smaller light. And I want to place those here. I want to place them there. Another one for this position. Then I can rotate all of this in the right way and just add a few more things. Like this. So now we once again have kind of a disco theme. And once again, let's try all of this to make sure it's working. And
Yeah.
I get some lights, I get shadows. So all of this seems to be working just fine. Another part that I do want to add now, and we had this earlier in the outside level, that so far we always used a point light. Let me open, for example, the wall light. There we have a point light and then a couple of light occluders. But besides point light, we also saw a directional light. But inside of the outside level, this wasn't necessary. In the inside level though, I do want to use it. And let me minimize all of this, because this light should be all the way at the top of everything else. I want to add another light, and the light I want to add is going to be a directional light 2D. If I add this by itself, everything is going to be really bright. That is because we are adding a color, but this is not what I want to do. I want to go to blend mode and then subtract. Now the color we have selected is going to be subtracted from the color in the level.
Wait. I was adding some overlays to make my level nice. What the fuck did you just do? Where did the light go?
A point light, but inside of the outside level, this wasn't necessary. In the inside level though, I do want to use it. And let me minimize all of this, because this light should be all the way at the top of everything else. I want to add another light, and the light I want to add is going to be a directional light 2D.
Yeah.
If I add this by itself, everything is going to be really bright. That is because we are adding a color, but this is not what I want to do. I want to go to blend mode and then subtract. Now the color we have selected is going to be subtracted from the color in the level. Meaning the brighter the color is, the more of a color we are subtracting. So you want to have this kind of dark, so we're not making our level too dark. Also, if you give this color a bluish tint, you make the entire level more red. The way you want to think about it is that whatever color you select inside of this color wheel is the color you remove from the level. So in my case, I want to have a bluish color with a very faint tint so that the entire level looks a bit more reddish. And make this a bit darker, I guess. And if you toggle the visibility, you can see the result. And I think this adds a lot more atmosphere. Let's try it again. And there we go. This, I think, adds quite a bit. And one more thing that we can do now. With the player node, I want to add another point.
Oh, this
light,
does look very nice.
And
It is, right?
for that, we need a texture. We can use the circle once again. Place it in there. If I change the strength, you can see what's happening. With that, we are lightening up the area around the player a bit. So let's try something like this. Use all of this again. And that is definitely too much. But you can see that now we have some light around the player, although it's way too strong. Let's keep it at 1. That should look better. And we probably have to work with the texture scale. Let's try to increase that to a 3.
That's too much.
And there we get a slightly brighter area around the player, which I think helps a lot for visibility. But once again, just play around with the numbers and just choose what you think looks good. I think we should make the entire level quite a bit darker. That way the effect is much stronger. When I run this again, there we go. This is feeling quite a bit better. So now we We can still see something around the player, but the level itself looks really dark, and we get some lights, and all of this is starting to come together really, really well.
Yeah, you can get more
All right,
atmosphere.
and I think with that,
Really quickly.
we have made a huge amount of progress. And unfortunately, if you look at this in the editor now, because the directional light, everything is really dark. So I guess when you want to work with it, you want to disable it. Also, you want to lock the layer. That way you don't select it by accident. But with that, we have another level. The last thing we have to do to make all of this work is to add a final area 2D. And this can just be an area 2D. This one, once again, wants to have a collision shape 2D. And this collision shape is going to be a rectangle shape. And this one right now is going to be in the center of the game. Let's scale it out a bit so it's easier to see. This shape is going to be the door or the transition area that makes it impossible for the player to leave. So I want to scale this to the size of the door. Something like this should be reasonably okay. Next up, I want to connect this area 2D with a signal to the inside level, so we can use it to trigger a script. The issue, however, is that the script attached to this node is right now a level.gd, so the one from the parent node. If I hover over that, we have level.gd, which means we have to do kind of the same thing we have done for the outside level, where we have created another script with inheritance. This I can do quite easily. I want to detach the current script and then attach a new one called inside.gd. I want to create this, and if I look at the outside level, they can see we are extending the level parent. This I also want to do for the inside level. And this is all we have to do for now. If I now run the inside level again, we should still be able to shoot a laser and shoot a grenade. And we can. This is all working pretty well. What that means is I can select the area 2D. As a matter of fact, let's rename it to exit gate area. This I now want to connect via a signal. Whenever a body enters, then I want to run a script inside of the script for the level. For this one, I can actually copy what we have done inside of the outside level. So I want to copy all of that and paste it in there. And this is very hard to read. That's better. For now, we are basically just slowing down the player. Let's try that one actually, just to make sure it's working. If I now run there, the player stops moving pretty much immediately. Now this part has gotten quite long, so for the next part, we're going to work on the actual transition. First of all though, there's one more thing that I want to cover. The debugger is unhappy again, because we are using a parameter body inside of this function, and we're not actually using it. We're just having the parameter.
Hey,
Which
Tom!
means we have to
Welcome
add
to
an
the stream.
underscore, so Godot stops complaining.
How's it going?
And now run this again. No more debugger issues, and this is much better. With the inside level build, we have an outside and an inside level. So for this part, we will look at the transition between the two, which in practice means that we want to change a level, which means we have to load another scene, either the inside or the outside scene. Fortunately, this is trivial in Godot. It's really easily done. However, just transitioning between two scenes is going to be a really hard cut. We are immediately going from the inside to the outside level, which isn't going to look amazing. For that, we're going to use an animation player to add a proper transition. That being said, that last part we are not going to cover for now, because I will have to cover a few topics inside of the UI, so the user interface, to make that part a bit more understandable. So for now, we have a transition with a hard cut. Let's implement that one. Right now, we have an outside level, and let me close everything, where the player is starting outside of the gate. And once again, I want to make sure that we cannot select the children, so I can choose to place the player right here. Also, the crate shouldn't be there, and the toilet.
How's it going? Are you working on Godot as well?
What is really important now to understand is that when we are loading a scene, we are loading all of this, which means that this player will always start in this position. Same for the inside scene, this will be the starting position of the player. Later on, once we add enemies, you're going to see what this means in practice. Basically, when we're going to this scene and we're adding some monsters, and the player comes in here for the game and kills all of the monsters, then goes outside and then inside again. So we are reloading all of this. Then the monsters would reappear. It's going to make a lot more sense later on. For now, just be aware that we are loading all of this, so all of these nodes, and this is always from scratch. There's nothing persistent right now. And to change the scene, we have to look at some script, and we have onGate player and that gate. If that is the case, we want to transition to the inside level. All we have to do for that is to get the tree and then run the method change scene to file. There you can already see Godot is giving us all of the scenes we have available inside of the project. And I want to look at inside level. That's very hard to read. That's a bit better. We are basically opening a file from the file explorer. That's all we are doing. And now if I run this again, we are starting inside of the outside level. And if I go into the gate, we have another scene. This doesn't work the other way around. We're just stopping and not moving anymore. For that,
nice.
Inside of inside.gd, we want to do the same thing. I want to get the tree and then run the method change scene to file. And now I want to open the outside scene. And another way to get the file in there is you could literally look at the file explorer. There we have scenes, and there we have levels, and there we have outside.tscn. This you can just drag in there like so, and there you have the right file. If I now run all of this again, I am in the outside, I can go inside, and now if I go outside again, we are in the outside. So this keeps on working just fine. Although you can see very much that the transition between the two is incredibly harsh. We are basically teleporting, which isn't ideal, but it's certainly a start. Right now, we have used change scene to file.
And if you don't spawn, like if your player in the outside scene starts nowhere near the gate, and you go inside and then back out, he's nowhere near the gate. He's at the starting position again. Okay, yeah, we're gonna change that with time.
Which works reasonably well. Besides that, we can also use get tree once again. This we always need. And then if I type change, we get change scene to file or change scene to packed. And what that means is that this method wants to have a packed scene that we are loading into the level. This we do all the way at the top. I could, for example, create var outside level scene, which has to be a packed scene. And to add this one, we have to do the same thing we have done for the laser. If I look at the level.gd, we are preloading a scene. Here we have done this for the laser, and here we have done the same thing for the grenade. Inside of inside.gd, I want to use preload once again. And what I want to preload is the outside level. Once I have that, I can simply paste in outside level.scene and comment out the earlier code to change scene to file, run all of this again, and we should have the same result. If I do this, we are still going between the inside and the outside level. So this is also working really well. I guess one more thing that could be super useful is that you can set this outside level scene to an export variable. So if I add export, we can change all of this inside of the editor. And right now, I don't want to preload anything, which means I am simply creating a variable that has to be a packed scene, but there isn't any packed scene available right now, which means if I now go to the inside level or scene, click on inside, there we have outside level as a new attribute inside of the inspector. And there we can simply drag in a scene. Once again, I want to use the outside scene, so I can simply drag it there. Once again, the result will be the same.
Yeah, I mean,
I can switch between the scenes very easily. Perfect. Now, this kind of setup can be really useful if you want to have a lot of control over what kind of scene you are spawning. For this setup, probably not terribly useful, but for example, for the lasers, this could actually be incredibly powerful. You will see immediately what kind of scene you have. That is going to cover the transition. Now, right now, this isn't going to look amazing. And to make it look good, we have to cover UI topics. So let's talk about that. The next major topic is going to be the user interface.
This is gonna be a big...
Which means
This is gonna be a big... Yeah, this is a big chapter. That's basically a whole new layer on top of our graphics right now, I think. Like canvas items and canvas layer and all that.
The next major topic is going to be the user interface, which means I want to display the amount of health the player has, the amount of ammunition, and the amount of grenades. On top of that, I also want to display a couple of icons to make the entire thing look a bit nicer. Although for all of this, we have to cover a tiny bit of theory. Let's jump right in. In Godot, there are fundamentally 4 kinds of nodes. Number 1, we have the 2D nodes, and those are always blue. We have seen quite a few of them. A sprite would be a really good example. Next up, we have 3D nodes, and those are for 3D games, and I'm going to skip them entirely for this video. Next up, we have the control nodes, and those are the nodes you would be using for the user interface. I will cover them in just a second. Finally, you have other nodes, and this would, for example, be a timer. If we look at all of this in Godot, you can see, so far, all of the nodes we have worked with always have a blue icon on the left. This means that they're exclusively for a 2D space. The only exception is the timers that we have used. Those icons are white. And also, if I open the grenades, there we have an animation player. But well, an animation player could be used for a 2D game, for a 3D game, or for literally any kind of app. Now, I want to close the player, the wall light, and the house, so I'm stuck with the level and the parent. Also, let me close the animation player. If I'm trying to add another node, you can see all of the nodes we are working with, and the really important ones are either in node 2D, in control, or in node 3D. If you look at the control nodes and expand that one really popular node you would see in there is a label, which is the easiest way to display text inside of Godot. Besides that, if I go down a bit further, we have a texture rectangle. This one you could use to display an image. And besides that, we would, for example, have a video stream player. With that, you could display videos, meaning all of these nodes are for displaying some kind of user interface. There are quite a few more examples for control nodes. Labels and images are the really big ones, but we'd also have progress bars, buttons, areas of colors, text input, graphs, menus, videos, and basically anything you would use for a user interface. In just a second, I will cover quite a few examples, but before that, there's something really important I have to cover. And that is, when we are placing 2D nodes, we are working with pixel positions, which means that any 2D node has an X attribute and a Y attribute, and together those two determine the position of a 2D node. Control nodes work differently. For there, you either use anchors or containers or both. You still have X and Y.
I should keep a note of this. This seems important and very forgettable. But I should have probably keep track and made more extensive notes. But I'm pretty sure the whole coding learning journey of mine and later on, I'm always gonna, and I think everybody does, just look stuff up until it becomes second nature. So I'm not that worried about it.
Attributes, but you wouldn't really use them. This is something that confuses a lot of beginners, so I'm going to cover it in quite some detail.
Wait, what?
You still have X and Y attributes, but use anchors or containers or both. You still have X and Y attributes, but you wouldn't really use them. This is something that confuses a lot of beginners, so I'm going to cover it in quite some detail. Although, first of all, let's jump into Godot and let's have a look at all of this in practice. Here we are back in the editor, and let's say I want to add a couple of control nodes inside of the outside level. For that, I really just have to add a couple of nodes. For example, I could add a label. If I that, and let me zoom in a bit, we get some kind of outline, and in the top left, we have something that looks like green needles. For now, ignore that part. What is much more important, on the right, in the inspector, we have a text property. And there, we can write some text, and that is giving us some text inside of the game. If I now zoom out, we can see text is part of the game. I can also run the entire thing, and there we have some text. This works pretty easily. Although, note right now that the text is literally part of the game. So this wouldn't work for a UI, because the text would have to stay inside of one part of the game. We are going to enable that in just a second. First of all, though, I want to cover a few other nodes. Another really popular one would be a button. You also have a texture button if you want to have images in your button, but I just want to work with a button on its own. This one, once again, has some kind of area and then these green needles. Also, on the right, we have a text property. There we can add some text like a button. Also, you can move these elements around. So let me move it somewhere here and play all of this again. And now I have a button that I could click on with my mouse. These nodes work like any other node in the sense that they would have signals that you can send. You could run a function when the button is pressed, when the button is released, or when the button is toggled. There are quite a few options you have in here. Besides that, one more node I do want to cover would be a texture rectangle. This by itself doesn't have anything, but on the right we have a texture property, which means in there we can drag some graphic. Let's say I want to place the Scout PNG in there, and there we go. We have an image as part of the game. This is somewhat similar to a sprite, but there's one really important difference. If you look on the right, you cannot see a transform property. Although I tell a lie. If you look at layout, there we have transform. And this you could use to place the sprite. For example, if I change these numbers to 300, we would be moving this texture rectangle. But this isn't what you are supposed to be using. For an actual layout, there are much more efficient ways of working with all of this. So the main difference of a texture rectangle to a sprite is that this texture rectangle would allow you to work with containers and anchors. If you look at the top, there we have presets for anchors, and we have anchors themselves. If you click on that, you get a couple of predefined choices, and you could use that to place the element. Although this doesn't work perfectly right now, but you can see at the very least we can work with it. Don't worry too much about this for now. I will cover it in a lot of detail in just a second. Before we can get to that, I have to cover one more node. And the major issue we have to fix right now is that if I run the game, and let's say we want to have a UI, meaning in the bottom left, we want to have the ammunition and the grenades we have, and in the middle bottom, we want to have the health bar for the player. But this we can't do right now because the UI is moving along with the camera. So this we have to fix. And to fix that, we have to learn about one more node. Also, let me get rid of these nodes.
Container.
Instead, I want to create a new scene.
Or control.
And the root node for this one is going to be a canvas layer. A canvas layer is essentially another layer on top of the game, and this layer ignores the camera. The best way to think about it is that right now we have a camera pointing at our game, and this camera is following wherever the player is going. A canvas layer would be a sheet of glass glued to the camera, so it is always going to be inside of the frame. This canvas layer is going to become the UI. This I want to save right away. Let's do it inside of scenes, and there I want to create another folder, and let's call it user interface. In there I want to save the UI, and now we have the UI. I guess while we're here, we could give it a label, and we could give it a texture rectangle. The texture rectangle, once again, is going to get the Scout just for now, and let's move it here. And the label is going to get some random text. This canvas layer we can now use like any other nodes, and I want to place it inside of the level and add it there on top of everything else. If I now run the game, we have the texture and we have the text, but if I move around, they are always on top of the game and they always stay inside of the frame. So this is working really good. Meaning this UI node is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Perfect.
Yeah.
Now with that, I can get rid of these two nodes. And now we can talk about how to actually place a control node. Fundamentally, there are two ways to place control nodes. Those would be anchors and containers. Anchors are the green needles in the top left of a control node, and they determine what side the control node is sticking to. So it determines the position and the size. Besides that, you have containers, and those are parent nodes that determine the position of their children. For example, you could have a node that places all of their children in a vertical or horizontal layout. Those are the two major ways to place a control node, and that gives you a ton of control over how you're placing UI elements. Now, you could also use X and Y properties or drag a control node to the position that you want, but this is almost never a good idea. Let me actually demonstrate why. Back inside of the
because everything
editor,
is relative
let's
to the
say
camera.
I want to add some label, and this label is telling us the amount of lasers we have. Let's call it bullets for now. And those bullets I want to place in the bottom left of the screen, somewhere here. And if I now run the game, this works reasonably well. So for both scenes, we have in the bottom left some bullets. So you might be happy with that. But if I resize the screen, then, well, all of this is going to break. Also, if I remove this one, you can see pretty well that this kind of layout doesn't work all that well. And if I make the screen smaller, the node disappears entirely. So this kind of system really isn't that good, which is why most of the time you want to avoid it. You want to have a game that works with basically any kind of size, and placing UI nodes like that by using an X and a Y position is going to give you a ton of problems. So let's not do that, and instead I want to undo everything and instead use anchors. And to best visualize what's happening, let me get rid of this label and instead use a color rectangle. This is simply a rectangle that has a color. That's all that's happening in here. Inside of the inspector, you can change the color. Let's go with a bluish color. Now, the first way to place a UI node, you can see in the top left. There we have the anchors. Those are also these green needles. And for example, if I click on this full rect icon, then you can see pretty well what's happening. We are sizing this node to the size of the entire window. And the green needles are also covering all the four corners. If I now run the game, all we can see is this greenish color because it covers the entire window.
But if you
If you
resize
click
the
on something
window,
else, for example, the middle left, then we are placing this color rectangle purely in this one point in the center of the left side. You could also manually drag these needles. So if you click on one of them, you can resize them. This works perfectly fine, although also not what I want to do. Instead, how you would want to work with them is inside of layout. There you have the anchors properties. If I extend this a bit, you have an anchors preset. Right now it's center left. But what you could do is click on custom. And then you get anchor points, anchor offset, and grow direction. And anchor points is the really important one. This one will give you the position and the size of this area. And I think the best way to think about it is to draw all of this in. At the moment, there are 4 properties that we can work with.
Sorry.
We have left, top, right, and bottom. Those refer to the 4 sides of the screen. We have the left side, we have the top side, we have the right side, and we have the bottom. And I guess let's focus on one side for now. I just want to talk about the left side. The associated value for this property would be 0. This means that this node has a distance of 0 to the left side. If you combine that with the right side, which is also 0, it means that we are starting on the left side and we are going to 0% of the right side, which means that the width of this area is effectively 0. However, what we could be doing is set this right to something like 0.25. What this is going to do is it places the right side of the area to 25% of the distance to the right side. Meaning this part here would be 0, and this side would be 1, and we are currently at 0.25. In the game right now, we still couldn't see anything because we have some kind of width, but the height of our area is still 0. Because the top side is 0.5 and the bottom side is also 0.5. So the starting point is at half of the window and the ending point is also at half of the window. But if I change the bottom to, let's say, 0.8, then we are back to having an area. So once again, let me explain. There are two properties you have to be aware of. The top side is the first one. This one starts all the way up here, and the default value is 0. The final value, all the way at the bottom, would be 1. And the value we currently have selected would be right in the middle at 0.5. So this 0.5 gives you this distance. We are effectively 0.5 times the window height away from the top side of the window. The other property you have to be aware of is the bottom. This is the bottom area, and this one also has an end value of 1 and a start value of 0. Currently, the value.
But what's interesting is that it's the absolute, so it's always from the 0, from the coordinate system 0, 0, because otherwise this would be flipped, right? This would be, you would start from the 0 at the bottom and go to 1. Then this things wouldn't add up. But I mean, I get it. This is at one half of the screen, this and at 1/8 screen from below. Or from above again. Yeah, it's fine. This starts at 0 and ends, yeah. It's just like
is 0.8, which would be this line.
This is basically just like scaling, right? Because it's relative to the screen size.
This means that we're going from the top 80% to the bottom of the screen, which is then going to give us a proper area. So these numbers combine quite well. These anchor points are incredibly useful, but also really difficult to understand when you're getting started. So I would very much recommend for you to play around with these numbers and play a couple of color rectangles so you can see what's going on. Once you understand it, it makes a ton of sense, but to get there, you will need a couple of hours, so give it some time. These anchor points are also available for any control node. For example, if I add UI and give it another label, this would be another piece of text. For this, once again, at the top, we have
I'm
the
so
anchors.
tired.
So far, we have seen the presets. For example, this you can use to place it in the center, in the bottom right, on the right, in the top, or to cover the entire top area. You can also change the sizing, although this one isn't too important when you're getting started. The one on the left is what you want to focus on the most. And that would be the first way to work with UI nodes in terms of layout. The second one would be containers.
Hey,
and let me get rid of these two nodes. And let me explain the problem that you might encounter. Say you want to create a container with a couple of items. For example, in the...
You gotta go? You just came. Enjoy, man. But no, this is pretty clear to me. Yeah.
The bottom left, we want to create the ammunition
What
indicator.
are you working on?
For that, we want to have an icon on the top and then some text at the bottom, which means we want to place two control nodes in a vertical order. We could accomplish all of that with anchors, but it would be kind of a pain to work with. So for that, Godot has another way, and that would be containers. To work with them, you would add another node. There we have control, and in there we have container. For example, in there, we would have a grid container to place items inside of a grid. We would have a margin container to give a node some margins.
Oh, this is all gonna be such a pain in the ass for inventory.
And we would have, inside of a box container, a VBox container and an HBox container. Those are aligning control nodes in a certain direction, either in the vertical axis or in the horizontal axis. Let's say for now, I want to work with an HBox container. And if we're just adding it, this doesn't look terribly impressive. So right now we have alignment in the inspector, but nothing else. The way you are supposed to use this kind of container is by giving it children. Let's add some labels to illustrate what's happening. And if I add one node, the entire area collapses. But first of all, let's give this label some text. Let's say label 1. This is still not doing very much. But now if I duplicate this label, we have another label right next to it.
Hey Prophet, if you're still here,
Let's call
thanks
this
for the
one
sub.
label 2. This I can duplicate multiple times. Now we get another label. And all of these labels will always be to the right of each other. And let me duplicate this a few more times. Now we have a whole bunch of labels and they're always right next to each other. This is because of the HBox container.
I'm 2 subs away from 100. Woo!
You can tell this even better. If
Slow
I
but
click
steady.
on one individual label and I go to layout. If you look at layout mode, we have a container and this one is not available, so we cannot change this. And that is because we are getting the position from the HBox container. So stuff like transform also doesn't work. The position and the size of this node is determined by the HBox container. Godot literally is telling you that this node is a child of a container, and if you click on that, use container properties for positioning. The only thing you could influence is a custom minimum size, and if I extend the inspector, you could, for example, give each node a certain minimum size. This could be 200 pixels, and now this
room to
node
breathe a
has
little bit.
200 pixels of minimum width, although not exactly what I want to do. Instead, you would look at the HBox container, and in there, you determine all of the positioning and the sizing. For example, what you could be doing is make this thing span the entire window, and now we have all of the nodes in the middle of it on the left side. But this you can change with alignment. Right now it's begin. If you set this to center, they're all in the center. And if you set this to end, they're all at the end. Another thing you could be doing inside of theme override, there we have constants, and there you have separation, which gives you a space between these nodes. So if you increase that one, you get a bit of spacing between them. And well, that's kind of it. Basically what you would be doing.
Oh man, now I kind of understood before, but now I actually really understand why UI design is a whole separate, like, you know, a whole separate discipline.
Is you would use this HBox container with anchors to place it in a certain position, and then inside of the HBox container, everything is aligned along a horizontal axis. And if you combine those two, you can create incredibly powerful layouts. I suppose we could do another example. So let me get rid of the HBox container and instead add a grid container. For this one, we could once again add a couple of labels. So let's call this just label. The actual text really doesn't matter. I just want to have lots of labels. Right now, the grid container is aligning all of them on a vertical axis. But that is because we only have a single column. If I change this to a 2 or a 3, we get the associated number of columns. And for that, once again, I can place all of this, let's say, make it span the entire window. And under theme overrides, we could add H separation or V separation, and I don't know, space all of this out quite a bit more. And that would be a very basic introduction to control nodes. Now this is barely scratching the surface. You can go much, much deeper into all of this. I am going to make a separate video on all of that, but for now, it would be massive overkill. What you want to focus on is to master containers and anchors. That's the really important bit to understand for now.
Yeah,
so in our
seems like
case, what I want to start working on is the indicator for the laser amount and the grenades. For that, I want to add one node that would simply be a control node. This one doesn't really do anything. You would largely use it as a parent for another node. Let's rename it right away to the laser counter or bullet counter, whatever you want to name it. This laser counter I want to have in the bottom left of the screen, which means with the anchor, I want to select bottom left. Now we are all the way in the bottom left. That's a good start. Next up, I want to have two nodes on top of each other. For that, I am going to add...
Wait, why don't I see my anchor anymore now that I did this?
in the bottom left of the screen, which means with the anchor, I want to select bottom left.
Is that a bug? Like, I don't see the... little anchor needles. What does the debugger want now? Non-existent reference. What? Well, do I still have that? I do. Was that when we were connecting the instances? Aha, yeah. Yeah, okay, I forgot to do... I need to code this out, and then we preloaded the scene here. And then what was it? Get the tree. It wasn't change scene, it was load scene or what? Reload, unload. Wait, I can see it. How we did it for the laser. Laser. Up. Oh, that's in the player, right? Oh, no, it's in the level. Instantiate. Fuck, I didn't follow that step. Did he? You don't instantiate a scene, do you? I mean, it's fine. We can do this. Delete this. And just code this out. I think this should work. And it should still work. Let's see. Yep. Oh, wait. Where's my gate? My gate is gone. It's below the ground. I think that's why. There we go. Okay. That still works, and now probably the debugger doesn't like that we don't use body somewhere. Yes. Here. There we go. Okay. Aha! Why don't I have the needles? I move this back. Delete node. Call node. Control. View. Show ruler's guide. Origin viewpoint. Group and lock icons. Transformation gizmos. Grid. Huh. Wait, do I see it with anything else? Like a label? Huh. No, I don't. I haven't noticed that before. That's weird. Godot, not seeing anchor needles in scene. Anchor points, scene. Node's not visible. Reading, for some reason I cannot see any nodes of my scene with the editor anymore. Aha, you don't see this. All other scenes work properly into the overview. Yeah, it does seem like that's a bug. Okay, let's try and do a new UI, maybe. Let's save, or let's try a good old tested, true and tested thing of just starting the program again. Maybe that fixes it. You know? Did you try turning it off and on again? Because since... Oh, there we go! Yes, turning it off and on again worked. As per usual. Okay. So now if I can move this down, and it still works. Okay, cool.
Now we are all the way in the bottom left. That's a good start. Next up, I want to have two nodes on top of each other. For that, I am going to add a VBox container. This VBox container is going to have two children. The first one will be a label, and the second one will be a texture rectangle. The label is just going to be a number. For now, we're going to have some placeholder text, let's say 20. Also in there, we have horizontal and vertical alignment, and I want to set the horizontal alignment to center. That way, we are centering the text. For the texture rectangle, I want to close the enemy folder, and instead, we have a UI folder, which has bullet and grenade as images. For now, I want to work with the bullet.png and drag it in there. And now you can see a bit of a problem that this image is way too large. To change that, we have the expand mode. Right now, we have keep size. This one keeps the size of the original image, which is very much not what we want. Instead, what I want is to use fit height. With that, we are fitting this image to only cover the available height. That looks significantly better. So now we have a label and a texture rectangle. So with that, we have a decent start. But if I run all of this, you can see that the icon for the bullets isn't perfectly inside of the window. We are cutting off quite a bit. To fix that, I want to click on the laser counter, go to layout, and right now we have the bottom left. But this, I want to change to custom and then work with the anchor point. Because in here, I give it a tiny bit of padding to the left side, let's say 0.01. And if I change that, look at what's happening to the right side. It also changes to 0.01. The reason is that the right side can never be lower than the left side. If that was the case, we would have a negative width, which shouldn't be possible. Besides that, I want to set the top to 0.88, and that way, all of this is going to move up a fair bit. The right side and the bottom we can simply ignore. The right side simply doesn't matter, and the bottom should be 1 because I want to have this node all the way at the bottom. And now if I run all of this, we have the icon in the bottom left. There might be quite a bit of a distance between the bottom of the icon and the bottom of the screen. So let's change the top to 0.92. That might be a bit better. And yeah, I'm much more happy with that. Also, what is really important now, if I resize the window, this is always going to stay in the bottom left. I guess the one downside is if you scale all of this too much, at some point there's going to be more and more of a space between them. But this is something you can work on in your own time. And the node you would want to use for that would be a margin container. But in my case, I think I covered quite a bit of content already, so I don't want to add too much at once. Instead, let's do an exercise. I want you guys to add the grenade text and the icon to the right of the laser counter. Basically, use a VBox container and anchors like we have done for the laser, but make sure that you are changing the anchors so that the grenade is to the right of the laser counter. Pause the video now and try to implement that one.
Okay, I am gonna do that. We're gonna continue, but I'm gonna do a small break. I have to go blow my nose and get something to drink and things like that. So we'll be right back. 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops. I'll have a be right back screen, and it has a counter for 10 minutes. So I'm gonna be back before it runs out. I promise. And in the meantime, you can watch some of my older content. Be right back. and today I want to show you an amazing game that I just found out about. It came out in December last year, I think. Let me check. In August last year. It's totally free, and it's a collectible card trading game. So CTG, collectible trading card game. So take in account that people, if you play against people that have better cards, they're gonna kick your ass, just like in Hearthstone. And that game is called Duelist. So that's the game we're gonna check out today. I've been playing it for the last 2 days extensively. I really like it. And it's also basically a combination. So you can imagine if Hearthstone and XCOM had a baby, this is basically what you'll get. Because you do collect cards, you have minions, you have your hero or general in this case, but you put them on a grid and then move them around, and so positioning matters and all that jazz. So we'll play a few rounds, maybe, yeah, we'll play something against other players and see how that goes. I have a deck built here already. Matchmaking has been really fast, so I guess a lot of people are playing it. I have no idea. And maybe I'm selling you guys on something that you already know about for a long time. But this is the first this is the first I came across it, so you'll figure it out how it goes pretty fast, because it's basic. It has a lot of parallels with Hearthstone. So we get first 6 cards. We can discard 2, just like in Hearthstone. We can as well say hi, good luck, have fun, and all that. But you see, you move. Oh wow, she's gonna stun me first turn. Unbelievable. Okay, but we're gonna play these 2 little minions that we have. And this totem thing. And that's it, we can't do anything else. Also, those big orbs here in the set, the map is always the same, only the cover, the thing behind the map changes, just like in Hearthstone. And you always have these 3 orbs. You gain +1 mana that turn if you pick it up, or your minions. So if she summons a minion on this mana now, she's gonna get 1 extra. You have hero abilities. So for instance, I have here, I can summon a 2/2 thing. This obelisk I have summons a dervish. This is a wind dervish. Oh wow, what's this thing? Opening gambit triggers an effect. Progress, okay. Towards a mecha. Gonna go here. I'm gonna kill this thing before it can do too much damage. And we're gonna slowly move with this little guy towards this mana. And we're gonna call... No, we're not gonna call that guy. We're gonna call that guy when she equips an artifact or an item, basically. We're gonna move down here, and yeah, that's good. Can we summon? No. So yeah, as you can see, the pixel art is amazing. It's very detailed. It's combined with modern particle effects and all that. It reminds me of Battle Chess, a very old game, where chess pieces would fight like that every time they eat something. She's gonna stun me again, man. But she has to... Okay, she's building this Mecha Razor, I think that's her deck. I have no idea what will happen when that happens. But sure as hell doesn't sound all that good. But we get free attacks with this little guy, so I don't mind. So far so good. And you can replace one card each round. Okay, that didn't help me all that much. No, I'm not gonna summon that guy. Mecha Razor is something like a boss, 100%. You're basically all those mechs when you summon them, they have a Mecha Razor progress. Oh, he's ranged. Yeah, god damn it. I forgot that. I did not look at it. Okay. Got another obelisk here. Dancing blades, okay. Six mana. Okay, I'm back. And I don't know what I said in that video, but if you're looking for another hype, like Hearthstone type game, I definitely recommend Duelist. It's a great game. And it shut down in the meantime, but they did re-release it as, I think it's called Duelist 2 on Steam. And it's free to play. You should check it out. I think it should be free to play. Anyways, let's go do it. Do the job. The task. So, add the grenade text, an icon to the right of the laser counter. I was thinking that should all be in a grid and not two separate counters, but let's do how he wants us to do it. So we should have another separate control node. Control node. This is going to be a grenade counter. It's going to have a label. And it's going to have a texture rectangle. We should position this anchor to the lower left for now. Let's write here 5 grenades. Let's put it central. And grenade. Keep feet height, right? Okay. No, fit. What was it? Yeah, fit height. We have a strange thing now that it's overlapping, but okay, we'll figure it out. Bottom left, custom, anchor points. O2. It's too much. Let's do 05. There we go. Aha, it moves it automatically. Fuck. Okay, so it can be smaller than 05, and then let's do right 005 as well. There we go. And the label. And we need to move it to the top. So at the same height as this, and this was at what height? Alignment begin. Right? We need a V-box container. That's why that's not working. Okay. I messed up. And I'm gonna put the label in the V-box container and texture. There we go. Begin, and the height was 0.92. There we go. Should move the texture a little bit down. Yeah, the label doesn't show any anchors now. Is it because it's inside of a container? Okay, that's maybe why. I don't like that this is not aligned. This is driving me nuts. Let's see if we can maybe do the spacing or something inside the VBox. That should be possible. Layout, transform, nope. Theme overrides, constants separation. And let's separate this by 5 pixels? 10 pixels? There we go. Is the text now aligned? I can't tell. This looks good. This laser light is never gonna get old. Okay, I think that's everything. It should use a VBox container and anchors. It does. It's the same. I think that's fine. Let's go!
With the UI node selected, I want to add another control node. This control node is going to be the grenade counter, and this grenade counter is going to have a VBox container, and this VBox container is going to have label, and it is going to have a texture rectangle. We are pretty much copying what we have done for the laser. For the label, for now, let's add a placeholder of 5 in there. Doesn't really matter what it is. And for texture rectangle, I want to use the grenade. So the grenade I want to place into the texture. And now, once again, this is way too large. So with that, I want to select the grenade counter and once again place this thing in the bottom left. That is a tiny bit of an improvement. Next up, the texture rect. I don't want to have keep size. Instead, I want to fit the height. Besides that, for the label, I want to set the horizontal alignment to center. So with that, we have a reasonable upgrade. Although the problem is that the grenade is below the laser, not to the right of it. For that, we will need the grenade counter and go to layout. And instead of bottom left, this should be custom. With that, we can use the anchor points once again. The major difference compared to the lasers is that the left side should be 0.06. We go to the right of the laser and we have 0.1 units of the display width as padding. The top should be the same number, so 0.92 is what I think I used, and the other two numbers can stay as they are. This is going to be a reasonable start. If I now run all of this, we have a pretty good UI already. Well, it's not pretty good, but at the very least, it's an improvement. I think for now, this is a really good start. And before I continue, there's one thing that is annoying me a bit, and that is that the text doesn't look very good. So with the label selected, I want to give this a custom font. This you do via a theme, and right now we don't really have a theme. So I want to create a new one, and now if you click on that, you have a default font. At the moment this is empty, but we have in the UI folder is Subatomic Tsunami TTF. This you can drag into the default font. And now we have a different kind of font. On top of that, you could set the default font size, let's say 25, and that feels much better. This theme I want to save. So with the drop-down arrow, I want to save it. And now I'm going to save it in the user interface folder. Let's call it the main_theme. And there we go. Once we have that, I can go to label, and there we have theme. And I want to quick load a theme. And we only have one theme, the main theme. If I open that, this one gets the same font. And now if I run all of this, this is massively improved because now the text is looking better. All right, finally, there's one more thing we have to cover. And that is that this grenade is a bit too small right now. Let me explain what the issue is. We have a grenade counter, which is a control node, which covers this area. Inside of that, we have a VBox container that is covering this area. And inside of that, we have a texture rect that is constrained by the size of the VBox container. Right now, these green needles determine how much space the VBox container can occupy, which is 0. So if we change this to cover the entire available area, now you can see the green needles are covering the entire available space, but still the grenade counter constrains the size of the grenade. So this fit height is the constraining factor. That being said, if we make all of this a bit wider, let's say 0.08, then the grenade is also scaling up, because now there's more space in the horizontal and in the vertical axes. Although this might be a bit too large, let's say 0.07, I think that's looking better. And with that, I can run all of this again, and we have some basic UI. This is feeling quite nice. Cool. The next major part of the UI is going to be the health bar. And for that, we will need what is called a progress bar. Godot actually has 2 of them. We have a plain one and a textured one. The only difference between the two is that a textured progress bar has custom textures, whereas a plain one does not. Other than that, they are basically working in the same way. I am still in the UI scene, and I want to add another node. So with UI selected, I add another node, and the node I want to add is called progress bar. And there you can see we have a progress bar and a texture progress bar. For now, I will work with the simpler one, the progress bar. So I create that one, and now if I zoom in, we can see we have a thin area with 0% in the middle. To understand a bit better what's happening here, let me go to Layout and give this node a custom minimum size for the x-axis. Let's say 200 pixels. If I now look at the entire thing, you can see a bit better what's going on. And if you look at the inspector, we have a minimum value, a maximum value, and a value. There are a few other attributes, but those don't matter so much for now. If you update the value, you can see quite well what's going on. For example, if I change this to 20, we get 20%. And if you update the minimum value, let's say to 10, and the maximum value to 30, you can also tell that we now have a minimum value and a maximum value, and the actual value we see is the value between the two. Also, we get the actual progress bar, so that is quite nice. On top of that, if you don't want to see the percentage, you can simply disable or enable show percentage inside of the inspector. That's kind of it for a simple progress bar. Later on, when we have the player health, we're going to update this value, and that way displaying the amount of health the player has. Although, for all of this, I want to have a bit more styling. Right now, we have a plain gray color. This doesn't look very good. And for that, I want to get rid of the progress bar and instead add a texture progress bar. This one, like the normal progress bar, has a minimum value, a maximum value, and a value. But if we add a value in here, nothing is going to happen. The reason for that is that we have to add textures. And there are 3 textures we could add, and at the minimum, to make this work, you would need a graphic behind the texture bar and a progress indicator. For that, inside of graphics, under UI, we have another folder called progress bar. And in there, we have 3 pretty simple images. We have a background, we have an overlay, and we have a progress.png. All 3 of which, if I simply drag them in, the progress bar is a simple green rectangle, the BG is a grayish rectangle, and the overlay file is an outline over a rectangle. The way you'll be using them is under would be the background of the progress bar. And for that, I want to use bg.png. So I can drag it in, and now we can already see a bit better what's going on. Besides that, you absolutely need a progress texture. And for that, I have progress.png. I want to drag this in there. And now we have an actual progress bar once again. On that, we can update the value, let's say to 50 or to 80. And you can see this is working like a progress bar. Besides that, you can also add an overlay. And this is simply a graphic that is on top of everything else. It doesn't actually serve a purpose, it's just there for decoration. And in my case, I don't really like it, so I am going to leave this one empty. Which is a totally fine thing to do. Cool, and with that, we have a progress bar for our health. That being said though, if I run the game, this health bar is all the way in the top left. So this isn't ideal. Instead, I want to have it in the middle of the bottom of the window. Implementing that is going to be your exercise. I want you guys to place the progress bar in the center of the bottom of the window with some margins. And for that, I want you guys to use anchors and a margin container.
Ooh.
Now, a margin container I haven't used myself, so you have to experiment with this a tiny bit, but I'm sure you can figure it out. Pause the video now and try to make all of this work.
Okay, cool. So let's use margin container. Let's put the texture bar inside. And let's move it to the bottom of the screen. And let's see, layout. Clip contents that we do not want. Custom minimum size. Localization. Transform. Container sizing. Fill horizontal and fill vertical. Stretch ratio. Okay. Where is the actual margin you set for this? Auto translate, tooltip. Oh, there's tooltips as well. That's cool. Ah, neighbor left, neighbor top. Okay. Next previous mode. Click all. What? Ah, this is also like font. Things like that. Okay. We don't actually need that. Theme overrides, constants. Ah, there we go. There we go. So he put a margin like 10 pixels. There we go. Okay, that's very cool because it stays. Everything stays very symmetrical and nice. Okay, I think that's it. In the center of the bottom with some margins. We should probably make the margins bigger so it's in the same space as the... This looks good. Yeah, this looks nice. I mean, not nice, but it looks like it's centered. So if this is 0.7, no, 97, right? No, that's scale and not pixels. Fuck. Oh yeah, this would be a bit tricky now, right? Why the hell did you not... Ah, this was one, right? And the top was... 97. Uh, 92. Yeah, so this is strange. This is in pixels. Aha, because it's not an anchor. That's a constant. Yeah, we're not changing the anchor, actually. Yeah, that's fine. But that's the same problem I have now with my game, is that some things are in pixels and some things are, you know, in something else. And then regulating that is really a pain in the ass. But this looks, at least, looks fine. Okay.
I first of all want to wrap this texture progress bar in a margin container, which means with UI selected, I want to add a margin container and then make the texture progress bar a child of that container. And if you do that, nothing is going to change inside of the game. Next up, I want to place this margin container in the center of the bottom of the window. And for that, I want to go to anchors and then use this center bottom button and click on it. And then we are all the way at the bottom. And this is already a pretty good start. On top of that, what you can also do is you can go to theme overrides. There we have constants. For example, in my case, I want to give all of this a bottom margin. And if I increase that number, at some point, we are moving all of this up by a certain amount. Let's say 30 pixels. Looks about right. If I now run all of this again, there we have the progress bar, bottom. On top of that, because of the margin container, this health bar is always going to be 30 pixels from the bottom of the window. So if I make the window much larger, you can see this health bar still works just fine, whereas the indicator for the ammunition and the grenades don't work as well. So working with the margin container is definitely the better choice. And with that, we have covered another important widget. For the next part, we can actually start working on the functionality of all of this. Now that we have the UI nodes in place, we want to make the UI interactive. Although before we can make that work, I have to cover another really important concept. Let me explain the problem. Right now, when the player is shooting a laser or a grenade, we want to reduce the lasers or the grenades by an amount of 1. Which means that we have to have a laser variable available in 2 scenes, in the player and in the UI. And if the game was more complex, we might even want this available in more scenes, like an upgrade menu or a store or literally anything else. That means that we have to make the lasers and the grenades accessible everywhere inside of the game.
That's the preload
which is not something that we
thing.
can do right now, but we can learn how to do it quite easily. The concept we have to learn about is called autoload. This one literally loads a scene or a script into every single scene in the game. That way, you can store and access information globally. By globally, I mean every single scene, regardless of what scene you are in. For now, we are going to use that for the laser and the grenade amounts and the player health. Later on, we are also going to use it for the player position. But don't worry about this one for now, we're going to cover that later. For now, let's play around with auto load. If you look at the top, there we have project, and there we have project settings. So far, we have looked at general and the input map. Besides that, if you look on the right, we have auto load. And this tab is incredibly important. In there, you can set a path and then a node name. Pretty much what you want to do is use the folder symbol and then click either on the script or on a scene. Both would be possible. And then this script or scene would be loaded into every single scene by default. And for now, I want to create another script. And for that, I want to create another folder. So let me create a new folder. And I'm going to call this one Glow Builds. Inside of this folder, I want to create a new script. So I right click on it and then new and then script. Godot is now going to ask me what I want to name the script. And I want to call it Glow Builds. Also for the template, this should be empty by default. And if I now create it, we have another script. I can double click on it to open it. And right now we have an empty script that is extending the node. Now that we have that, I can go back to project settings, and auto load, and I want to select this particular node. So all the way at the globals folder, I want to select globals.gd, and now Godot wants to give this a node name. And globals is perfectly fine. If you are happy with both of them, you can click on add, and now we have a globals that is being auto-loaded. So what does that actually mean? And to illustrate that, let me run the game. If I now look at remote, we have globals and we have outside. Inside of outside, we have all the stuff inside of the game, but globals is also there. And if I go to another scene, there we have inside, but we also have
this
globals.
in remote, shows in remote.
And this globals, we never added manually into any scene. It's not inside of level, it's not an outside, it's not an inside. It is only there because we are auto-loading it, which is incredibly useful because now we can simply store any kind of value inside of this script. For example, what we could be adding could be a variable for the laser amount, which by default could be 20. I don't really care about the number here, just choose whatever you like. The important thing is that we can access this laser amount from any other script. For example, we could look at the player.gd, and I could extend this window. Inside of the player, we could add another function for _ready. This function will be run automatically once the player has been added to the game. And I want to print player, and then I want to print globals, and inside of there, we have the laser amount. And the same thing I can do inside of level. Once this scene is _ready, I want to print that we have a level, and then I also want to print globals and the laser amount. If I now run the game, you can see we have player 20 and level 20, which is a really good illustration that we have globals available everywhere. This would also work inside of the UI or literally any other node. It's available globally. Also for the name here, you could name this script whatever you want, although I think in my case globals makes the most sense. I guess on top of that, I should mention we have named the script in lowercase globals.gd, but inside of project and autoload, we have given this a custom node name, which is globals with the first letter being capitalized. This is how you would access this node. But well, with that, we don't need this information in the level, at least for now. Also, inside of the player, I want to get rid of this ready function because it's not needed. Let me move the inspector a bit to the side so I have a tiny bit more space. The way I want to use this globals information. Right now, we are shooting a laser with this if statement, where we are checking if we are pressing the primary action button and the player can laser. On top of that, I want to add another conditional part. I want to check if globals and the laser amount is greater than 0. With that, we are reading the global variable. On top of that, we can also change it. So the first thing I want to do is to get globals.laser amount once again, and then subtract 1 from it. With that, I should be able to shoot the laser 20 times. And let's try that. So this might take a second. I probably am going to speed all of this up. And there we go. I keep on clicking, but there's no laser. And well, this is covering the first part. Now the player has access to the laser amount. Next up, we have to access all of this as well from inside of the UI. And for that, we have to give this one a script. So I'm going to click on Add Script, and I want to save the script inside of the same folder where we have the scene. This looks pretty good, so I can add it, and I don't want to have anything else there. The way I want to approach this is I want to write another function, and let's call it update laser text. This doesn't need any parameters, and really all I want to do. I want to get the label inside of the laser counter, this label here. And I could drag all of this in there, but this would be kind of annoying to read. Also later on, I want to access this multiple times, so this isn't a really efficient way of working. Instead, what I am going to do is to store this label, or this node to be more specific, inside of a separate variable. All that means is I want to create another variable that I'm going to call the laser label. This has to be a label node, and the value is going to be what we're getting from this node. Also, let me extend this window so we can see a bit better what's going on. I hope this kind of setup makes sense. I am simply storing a reference to the node inside of a separate variable. That way, inside of this function, I can get my laser label, and then I can look at the inspector to see what we can work with. So if I look at the label and I hover over text, you get text. So if you want to update this property, you will use the text property and then give it a new value. In this case, I want to target my globals and then the laser amount once again. However, we have two problems inside of this script right now, and Godot is actually complaining. The first one is that the default value is using a $sign, which won't return nodes in the scene tree before the ready function is called. Which means that only when you're calling the ready function, we are creating all of the nodes. And this one would be run before that, so it wouldn't work. There are two ways to solve this. One approach would be to simply create a ready function and then paste this variable in there. And this would be totally fine, although now we have another problem, that this variable is only existing inside of the ready function as a local variable, so it wouldn't be available inside of the update laser text. So this isn't ideal. I guess you could work around it, but there's an easier way. You could add an add and then on ready. With that, this line of code is only run once the scene is ready. It's effectively the same thing as running this line inside of the ready function, although with the difference that all of this is going to be in the global scope of this class. This would be the first problem. The second problem is when we update in the text, Godot is expecting a string, but globals.laserAmount right now is a number, and this would cause an error. So we have to convert this number into a string, which you can do very easily by using the str function. And that is pretty much all we need to update this node. The one issue we have now is that we have to call this function at a certain time. Right now, we have a function that could update the laser label, but we don't know when to call it. This I want to do inside of level.gd. And once again, let me extend all of this. When the player is shooting a laser, I want to target the UI, and on there, I want to get the update laser text. So paste it in there and simply run it. With that, I should be good to go. Let's try all of this. And now the numbers are updating. This is looking really good. And once again, let me keep on shooting the laser so we can make sure that this doesn't work once we have 0 lasers. And there we go. This is looking really good. And just to reiterate, what is happening here? The first step is we have a global script, and in there we're only storing a single value, the laser amount. This value we access in 2 places. We have it in the player, and in there we are checking if the number is greater than 0, and if it is, we're reducing it by 1. Besides that, inside of the UI, we have an update laser text, and this one is taking one node and then uses the global laser amount to update this text. Finally, inside of level.gd, we are targeting the UI scene and then calling update laser text. I hope all of that is straightforward. This is an incredibly important concept to practice, so let's do that. I want you guys to create a global grenade amount variable and connect it to the player and the UI. It should look really similar compared to the laser. Pause the video now and try to figure this one out.
Okay, so we go back to the globals. We add grenade about amount. Let's set it to 5. Then we go to player. We check if globals dot grenade amount is bigger than 0. If it is, it's -0, -1. Then we need it here in the UI. Make a new function. We call it update grenade text. On ready, we make a variable for the grenade label. It's a class label, and it should be this one. And then we say grenade label text is a string of globals grenade. Isn't it auto complete here? Yeah, that's a shame. So you have to be careful. And now we need this to actually get called inside of the level. When a player shoots a grenade, we go UI dot update grenade text, and there we go. Is that it? There we go. And when we get to 0, we cannot fire anymore. There we go. Okay. What's really weird and what I have to get used to is like making your own functions and then calling them. So this exists inside of the UI, but it gets called and triggered somewhere else. That's very important. And this on ready is really cool. Okay. Let me actually put a note for that. This is not actually poignant to control nodes. On ready, ready's line of code without a blank ready, and it is referenceable. Referenceable. Referenceable? Is that a word? Referenceable? No way that's a word. Referenceable. It is a word. What? Referenceable. Referenceable? Wait. How do you pronounce that? Oh.
Referenceable.
Referenceable. Yeah. And is referenceable in all functions on that same script. Referenceable. Okay, we're not just learning coding, we're learning English as well. Cool, cool, cool. That's very useful. Nice. Okay, I think I got it. Let's keep going.
I want to start by working inside of globals.gd. Right now, we have a laser amount. Besides that, I also want to have a grenade amount. For the starting value, I want to set this to 5. Next up, we have to work inside of the player. And in there, like we have done for the laser, I want to check.
It's great. Now that I'm finally, we're finally coding and actually building up levels and stuff, it's really, really fun. And I'm going to start working parallel as soon as possible. I just need to figure something out with the tile set that's bugging me, but other than that, I'm liking it a lot, and I can keep track of most things that's being introduced, I don't feel lost as I thought I was gonna. How are you? What's your Godot story? Are you a beginner or are you a pro working on something? Have any projects going on?
The input is pressed.
And I really like this tutorial. It feels like, it respects your time, and it doesn't, it actually explains you something and then tells you go do it on your own now, and then it explains after. It's really good.
For the secondary
I almost feel like I'm one-on-one with a teacher,
action, if we have a timer for can grenade, and on top of that, I want to check if globals.grenade amount is greater than 0.
Wait, did he have the autocomplete on it?
Globals.
Oh wow! Congrats, man! That sounds amazing. Link your game. Let's check it out right now, live.
Grenade amount is greater.
Aha! Links are blocked. Fuck. Wait, is there a way? Can I go to Twitch and actually see it somehow? Just a sec. Survival escape. Yeah. Let me then do that. Yeah, sorry. Survival escape. There we go. Oh, it's oh, that's not gonna work. It's a vampire survival like. I'm digging the music. Okay, multiple classes. Maps. Oh, leaderboard is cool. Oh, I was about to ask how complicated it is to get like a leaderboard going. Because you don't actually need like a proper network code, right? You just need somewhere to ping and store the high score, right? Steam has its own API for that. Oh, that's great. That is great. Okay. The only thing I would say as a total novice looking at this is that what's really bugging me is the discrepancy in the resolution between the ground and characters. If you know what I mean. Like, characters are very crisp, but the background is just a stretched image, looks like. Maybe if you tiled it a little bit. Yeah, Why would you have parallax on a single background? Isn't parallax usually when you have like multiple things? I like this artwork a lot in the background. Yeah, cool. I mean, that's probably a lot of work. I thought about it, like, I started thinking about when you get into game dev, you know, you start thinking about how much work there is to actually put a game out. And just like all the different types of weapons and enemies and their attacks and all that, that's a lot of work. Oh, weekly challenge mode, that's probably just, you have like a seed for everybody, right? That gets updated every week. That's cool. Oh yeah, I think that's a huge experience boost as well when you actually have a game on Steam and you know you do everything behind the curtains. That's needed for that as well, like controller support, and setting up a Steam page and all that. Yeah, but it is RNG, it's just all the same RNG, right? Everybody gets the same seed of the RNG. That's why everything's the same, right? Is that how that works? Yeah, okay, cool. No, man, props to you, kudos, and this is, I'm on incognito. That's fine. Let's stay that way. I'm gonna wishlist it on the other. How many wishlists do you have? Or are you you're actually doing probably a big bump during the Steam sale, the Steam. Oh, that's nice, man. That's really nice. Yeah, but you're probably gonna get a bigger bump from the next fest as well. Fingers crossed. I wish you the best of luck, my dude. Because it does seem like the place is getting pretty crowded, right? Yeah, yeah. I mean, just having a good game and word of mouth, I think does wonders. And then, of course, having your demo on the Steam Next Fest so people can actually, you know, see it. But yeah, just like, you know, Holston and games like those that you would never probably find otherwise. They exploded during the next fests because they're just so original or so well made, right? Oh, I bet, yeah. I played a little bit of Vampire Survivors, and I played a little bit of Death Must Die, or what's the name of that game? And Deep Rock Survivor thing. Because I just really like Deep Rock Galactic, so being in the same universe and having a game like that is really... Yeah, I think it's a pretty cool way for a first project, because it is a fleshed out game with just a bunch of... It's more quantity of really simple cornerstones, right? Of simple systems, basically. Yeah. And like the guy that did Vampire Survivors was a fucking genius, right? That he did that. Hey, thank you very much for the follow. Much appreciated. I think, wow, I think we're one off from 100. Speaking of one off from 150 wish lists, I think I'm now with you. You might be the 100th follower on. No, on Twitch not. That was on YouTube. Yeah, it's fine. It's so weird. I used to stream and play video games for like for a full year. I had a full schedule, like 3 times a week, each time for 3 hours, and I managed to get like 80 followers. But now that I'm streaming Godot, I got 20 followers in like 3 weeks. So that feels really nice. Yeah, I'm at 97 on Twitch. It's fine. I shouldn't look at the numbers. Don't look at the numbers. Stream like the whole world is looking. But yeah, really cool. There's been so many people coming in here, you know, really excited or just starting out or having their first project. And also we're on like we have now a smaller group on Discord as well that we're linking our projects and what we're working on, things like that. It's really cool. What I'm planning to do is let me actually show you if I can show you. But that's where I had a problem with the tile sets. Let me see if I can show you. So what I want to try to do. Normally, I'm a CAD designer or a technical draftsman, drawer type thing. So I've been looking at blueprints my whole life, and I thought it would be a really cool idea to do a top-down game where you're just shooting through a blueprint, like you're going through architectural plans, right? So I was trying to do a tile map like this. But the problem is, and having like hatch for grass and different floors, things like that, I think that would look really, really cool. And this was like the inner walls and stuff. But the problem is, this is all, CAD vector type graphics that the lines don't actually have a thickness that you can zoom in indefinitely. So when you go through that and you go through the DPI settings in inches when you plot this out and then you turn it into pixels and stuff, it always fucks up my tile map. And the raster for the tile map is not exact. I'm 1 pixel off. For some reason, all my math, I try to do it. I'm always 1 pixel off. So for instance, you would get on this window, you would get this border here. But on the other one, you would not get this border, it gets cut off. And that's just pissing me off so much. So I need to figure that out. It's driving me insane. Because that's the only thing that's like a hurdle for me to begin writing code. At least, But that's my plan for now. And how did you start? Is there a tutorial series you followed, or you have some previous experience with programming, or how did you get into this?
Then 0. If that is the case, I want to reduce globals.grenade amount by 1. This should already be the first step. So if I now run the game, we should be able to shoot 5 grenades.
We did all this.
1,
this is pretty.
2, 3, 4, and 5. And now I shouldn't be able to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And I can't. So this is definitely working. Next up, we have to look at the level and if the player is emitting the on-player grenade signal. I want to target my UI once again.
Yeah, you do that. Good luck, my dude. Check in after how it went. I would be really surprised to see how the Steam fest went. To update us on the wish lists, Good luck. Bye. Thanks for dropping by. Nice.
Then run a function called update grenade.
You can, let me just, if you're still here, let me just pull you a Discord link if you maybe want to drop by. It's the easiest way to keep in touch, I guess. But yeah.
Text. This function doesn't exist right now. Let me copy it and then work inside of the UI. I want to create a function called update grenade text. Doesn't need any parameters. And all we have to do now is target the label and then update the text. For this one, once again, I want to create a global variable that stores a reference to this node. So with onReady, I have var grenade label.
I noticed this when I was working on my skydiving game, is that it's much easier if you have a long string of something that you need to reference, is to just put it in a very nice packed variable. I did that for all like the screen size and height and width and all that.
Which has to be a label, just to be sure. And this value we can simply drag in there. I get it from the grenade counter. There we have the label. And that I want to drag in there like so. This we can now use with the grenade label dot text. And then I want to have a string with globals dot grenade amount. And that should cover us. Let's try all of this. And we are getting an error because
So for instance, I could do copious amounts of notes and say, okay, str is a thing that turns a number into a string and all that. But if I know what I want to do, I can just Google it and it comes out immediately. So understanding the concepts, I think, is much more important. And for instance, this is the number and it needs a because it's text and it's a string. I think that's a lot more important to understand than what the actual, you know, writing of it is.
I didn't get the proper node. I got the grenade counter, the VBox container, but not the label. And since I specified that this has to be a label, we're getting an error. All we have to do to fix that is to add the label. And now it should be working. Let's try again. This is looking better. If I shoot a grenade, we are updating the number. Cool. So this is working quite well. I can also do this over multiple scenes. And there you can see a problem. We are recreating the new numbers.
Right. I didn't check for that.
Let me actually play all of this again.
That's important.
Right now, we are in the outside scene. I can shoot a laser a couple of times, also the grenade. And now for the numbers, we have 17 and 3.
I doesn't remember it.
If I go to the inside level, we are back to 20 and 5. However, once I shoot a laser, we are going to 16. And if I shoot a grenade, we go to 2.
Okay.
The issue we have here is, if I go back to the UI, we have a default value for both labels, which are 20 and which are 5. Now, I could get rid of them, but this wouldn't exactly help me. So if I remove these numbers, we can't see any number. And if I run the game, by default, we don't have any numbers. And only if I shoot, we are getting numbers. But this also isn't ideal. And once again, once we're entering a new scene, this also isn't working.
Aha, it knows the number from the globals variable, right? Yeah.
Basically, what we want to do is once we are starting a new scene, we want to display the global numbers. Doing that is actually really easy. I want to work inside of the script of the UI, and in there, I want to create the function underscore ready. Once again, this will be run once the UI scene is ready, which means once we are entering the inside or the outside level, this function will be executed. And basically all we have to do is get the laser label, then get the text and assign it the string value with globe builds and the laser amount. Now if I run this, we're getting 20 by default. And if I shoot all of this, we are down to 16. If I now go inside, we still have 16. So this is working even across scenes. And you may be noticing now that we are duplicating code. I am running this line and this line here, and they are identical. Which means I can simply call update laser text, and I guess while we're here, also update grenade text once the scene is ready. And with that, we should be having everything in place. So we get the numbers right away, and now the numbers are 17 and 4. If I go inside, we keep the same numbers. So this is working super well. Cool. Let's try it one more time. And yeah, I am really happy with this. But we can make all of this look quite a bit more fancy. I'll cover that in the next bit. Next up, I want to change the UI color. Or more specifically, at the moment, the laser and the grenade parts are pure white, which is a bit boring. Instead, I want them to be green by default and red when the number is 0. So if the laser is a number like 10 or 20, I want the icon and the text to be green, but if they are 0, they should both be red. All of that we can change quite easily using modulate. So let's jump right in. Once again, back in Godot. For now, I want to give the label a default value of 20, and same for the grenade, a default value of 5. That way, it's a bit easier to see what's going on. A really important thing to understand is that the default white color is on purpose. What that allows me to do, for example, if I take this texture rectangle, I can go to visibility and modulate and change the color really easily to whatever value I want. What modulate is doing, it is multiplying the color with the color we are selecting in here. And if it is pure white, we are ignoring the base color and only use the selected color. If this was any other color, we would multiply this value and keep the original. So the white here is a deliberate choice. That being said though,
that's why I had a problem modulating the particles of the laser, because the sprite for the particle was already yellow, so I couldn't get it to be blue, if I remember correctly. Yeah,
I don't want to modulate this by hand. Instead, I want to change this with code. For that, I want to open the script and extend all of this and declare two color values. I guess I should add a colors comment, and I want to create a variable for the green color. I guess we can just call it green. Although we can specify this has to be a color. And to create a color value, we are simply typing in color, and then Godot lets you create a color. And you can create color in quite a few different ways. The prediction here gives you an idea of what you can do. One way would be to use hexadecimal values, which is actually what I want to do. And the value I want to use is 6BBFA3. The way hexadecimal values work is you have 6 digits in total. The first 2 are for red, the third and fourth are for green, and the final 2 are for blue. And the values always start with 0 and 0, which are the absence of the color, and they go all the way to F and F for the full amount of the color. And this might seem a bit weird to go from 0 and 0 all the way to F and F, but basically the way it works is we go from 0, 0 to 1, 1, and then so on. At some point we reach 9 and 9, and after that we are getting to A and A. With that system, we get quite a few more values, although when you start reading about it, it's kind of confusing. But most of the time, you don't create these values by hand. You use something like Photoshop or an online editor to create them for you. As a matter of fact, Godot has something inbuilt. If I close all of this and select the texture rectangle again, under modulate, you can select any value.
Yeah, and you see the hex.
Choose one, and there in the bottom, you can see the value or a similar kind of value. Besides that, I want to create another color. This one would be for red. It also has to be a color. And this we create with color. And for this one, I want to have another approach to color. In the first approach, we used a code string to create the value. For the next one, I want to have an RGBA tuple, which means we have to add 4 values, all separated by a comma. The value for red, for green, for blue, and for the alpha value. For each of these values, you have to choose a value between 0 and 1. For example, for transparency, 0 would be full transparency, and 1 would be no transparency at all. This is actually what I want to keep for this one. Now, besides that, for red, I want to have 90% of the color, and for green and blue, I want to have none of the color. And there we go. With that, we have another color object. And there are quite a few more ways to create colors in Godot, but these would be 2 popular ones. The way we would be using either of these values is we would simply get the laser label, for example, and then use modulate. To that, we would assign the color. For example, this could be green, or it could be for the grenades. Let's start with red. So I want to have the grenade label, use modulate, and then assign the red color. If I now run this scene, we are getting different kinds of color. For now, we are only changing the color of the text, and the icon for the bullets is colored because I have changed the value by hand. So if you look at this texture rect, I have changed the color. This shouldn't have happened. If I now run this again, that looks much better. So now we have a green and a red color. That isn't enough though, and we have quite a few problems at the moment. Number one is we are only coloring in the labels, not the icons. So what I want to do is to also store the icons inside of separate variables, which means I want to have on ready a variable for the laser. Let's call it icon. This has to be a texture.
Wait. Can we modulate the parent and that everything would change? Like if we modulate the VBox container? Texture, no, ability, modulate. Yeah. Why wouldn't you change both? Why wouldn't you change the whole parent?
Rectangle, and the value for that we can simply drag in there. So I can drag this texture rec in there, and then I can duplicate the entire line.
Oh, maybe he's gonna do
and change this
different
to
colors.
a grenade icon, and the value we are getting from the grenade counter. Then we have the VBox container and then the texture rectangle. That way we can target the grenade icon much more easily. And for example, what we could be doing is, besides the laser label, I also want to get the laser icon and then run the modulate attribute and assign it also the green color. If I now run this, we have a green color both for the text and the icon of the laser. That's working really well. And this covers all of this setup. So next up, I want to do a slightly more advanced challenge. I'm sure you can figure it out. I want you guys to create a function called update color. And this one has 3 parameters: the amount, a label, and an icon. And this function should color the icon and the label red if the amount is 0 and otherwise green. Pause the video now and try to make this one work.
Why would you do the label and icon separately if they're doing the same thing? We're not gonna have anything else in this VBox container. I don't want to gun-ho it and do it on my own and fuck up the code if he has something else in mind after that. You know? So, yeah, fuck. Let's do it the way he intended. Create a function called update color. Update color with 3 parameters: amount, label, and icon. Amount, label, icon. That's what that means. This function should color the icon and the label red if the amount is 0. So if amount equals 0, label dot modulate, right, equals red, why do I not know how to set up a proper if statement? Assignment is not allowed inside an expression. It's just this. Right. If Ba-ba-ba. What? Why is the globals now broken? What is going on? Where's the globals? What? Oh my god! I just nearly had a heart attack. What the fuck? Oh. If I have to plug those parameters in somehow, right? Else. Yeah, I don't think this is gonna work until we plug it in. So where he would get the amount, the label, and the icon. If globals dot No, I think this is right. Let's see.
I want to create another function all the way at the bottom. This function is called update color, and we will need 3 parameters: the amount, a label, and an icon. And in here, we can be a bit more specific, although for now, let me add pass in there so Godot stops complaining. We know that the amount always should be an integer, so we can add an int in there just to make sure we don't add any other data. The same we can do for the label. This needs to be a label. And for the icon, this needs to be a texture rectangle. Basically, what I want to do is to pass any of these labels or texture rectangles into this function. And I guess while we are doing this, you can also specify the return value in Godot. So this function by default should return void, meaning it doesn't return anything. And this should be a lowercase v. You see this kind of setup really often in Godot. So you're specifying what kind of parameter you're getting and what return value you're getting from the function. If I change this void to, let's say, an integer, Godot would complain that the function doesn't return that value. But if it is void, we are not returning anything. Inside of this function, I want to check if the amount is smaller or equal than 0. If that is the case, I want to get the label and then run modulate on it. Or more specifically, I want to overwrite the modulate value. The value I want is the red color. The same thing I want to do for the icon. And in there, once again, I want to get the modulate value, and this should be...
so it doesn't like the equal. But if it's smaller than or equal, then it's okay. Because one is an if statement, the other one is setting it like that. That's weird. So that's what it didn't like. Why doesn't else work? Ah. There. I think I did it on my own. I just missed one little bracket.
If that is not the case, so for the icon, and
Okay.
there, once
I'm
again,
redeemed.
I want to get the modular
proud of
value,
myself
and this should be
for
red.
this.
If that is not the case, so else, I want to do basically the same thing, so I can just copy all of this, except this shouldn't be red, this should be green. That is pretty much it. All we have to do now is call this function. And this we do inside of update grenade text or update laser text. I don't want to modulate this grenade label anymore. Instead, I want to call update color and pass in the value, which would be the globals and then the grenade amount. Next up, we need the label, which would be the grenade label. And finally, we need the icon, which would be the grenade icon. Now we can duplicate this line and move it into the laser amount, because in there, we want to have pretty much the same thing, except it would be the laser amount, the laser label, and the laser icon. Like so. And now, if I run all of them.
I did not specify in my code the icons on ready bar grenade icon is a texture rect and it is this is the laser first. Laser first. So it's this, and then gonna do this here. It's gonna be 8 icon, and it's going to be this. So now we pass it as the global grenade amount is the amount, grenade label is the label, and grenade icon is the icon. So if we go up here, update colors, update color laser amount, a laser label, and laser icon. It just seems very messy. We are writing so much of the same things here. Why not just do it with the parent?
This. By default, we get green icons, and if I shoot the laser and the grenades, let me do all of this, whichever one finishes faster. I guess the laser is going to be faster. If we get to 0, this thing is becoming red. The same with the grenades. Let's try this again. Actually, I want to move to another scene to make sure this works across multiple scenes. So if I now go inside, we still get the same colors, and I can shoot a grenade and do it one more time. It also becomes red, and this also works across multiple scenes. Cool, so this one is working super well. I think the logic here keeps on getting a bit more complicated, so I hope all of this is still making sense. The major new thing is that now we are passing entire nodes into other functions, which is a perfectly fine thing to do.
That's super
I hope that was useful, and for the next part, we can actually work on the transition between the two levels. Now that we have covered the basics of UI.
Okay, I think this is a good place to stop, because we are moving on to another topic. This is now, we are off from UI for now. Yeah, this is super cool, because finally all the things that I want to do in my game, I can start to finally think of how it's actually done, which is probably 10 times more complicated than I think it is, but you know, Have to start somewhere. Yeah, so we're back to our regular scheduled program. So this was the Monday stream. The next one is on Wednesday, and the next after that on Saturday. Maybe there will be some random streams here and there outside of that, but probably on the weekends, not anymore during the week, because my vacation's over and I started working again. Thank you everybody that joined. Go make stuff, go learn everything that you've been putting off, go do it. As you can see, it is a lot of fun once you get into the thick of it. Thank you very much, and thanks for dropping by. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you next time. Mwah.